Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Well, it's been a momentous week in the Craft Beer channel, Bradley.
Dude, we had a long film day and you've been deep in an edit.
Deep in the edit of the doc.
Doing some graphics to spice it up a little bit. We've had a great video go out. We've had a busy week.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that while trying to get paid for our adverts on YouTube, I came across a setting that showed that we'd been stopping any alcohol brand from advertising on our channel. So literally,
we are,
our core advertisers haven't been able to advertise on the YouTube channel since 2013.
Damn. So that what you're saying, John, is we've done ourselves out of 9 years of advertising revenue from our target market.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's good to know we're so on the ball with this stuff.
I know, right?
I am worse than useless at this stuff. And we talked about this. We think it definitely is something that they switch on as default to block alcohol advertisement on YouTube channels,
yeah,
right?
I mean, even though you probably make a lot of sales, like you don't want alcohol being advertised on something about kids' toys. Like, it's probably the parents watching it for the 100th time with their kid and probably want some booze, but that's not really ethical. Whereas with us, it would make a lot of sense because our content is over 18s only anyway. We should have over 18s advertising, but we didn't.
Yeah, not like sexy advertising though, just like sexy beers.
Well, I think I've unlocked sexy advertising as well now. Not sexy advertising, but there was like a setting that was like bare skin. That I think
bare skin. Did you activate that?
And yeah. Well, I mean, because it's
cool.
not going to be anything too intense, is it? Because it's still YouTube. You still have their sort of terms and conditions with the advertisers. So I think it's just been stopping, I don't know, like maybe a lady shaving an armpit or a man trimming his chest or I don't know, something like that. It's just been stopping those.
We've got a comment from this week about me exposing my too much chest.
Yeah.
Video.
Well, now we're going to get sponsored by Gillette, I think, off the back of your hairy chest being out.
I'll tell you what, you've got a hairier chest than me. You're like a monkey man. Not to out your hairiness, Johnny, but
in a nice way though, right? In a Selleck, Tom Selleck like kind of way.
Yeah, Tom Selleck, Sean Connery.
Thanks, man.
When men were men.
Yeah.
Kind of like hairy.
Wait, what? Men aren't men anymore?
I'm saying it in the sort of old school ironic way when they used to talk about, men being real men and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, when the rise of the hairy men.
Yeah. We're bringing it back. We're getting, if you've got it, flaunt it. And we've got lots of hair. No, I've got to stop this conversation. So yes, basically,
have you ever seen Zardoz, Johnny? It's a Sean Connery film, and he's running around with a ponytail. Please Google it now, actually, Johnny. Zardoz. He's running around in a ponytail. He's wearing.
I don't even know what word you're saying.
Zardoz. So this was when men were real men and had terrible outfits in films. He's wearing knee-high boots, leather boots, a red loincloth, and sort of like gun bandolero things that go across his chest that look like a sort of sex harness.
Oh, yes, I know this. I know that image. Yep. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So, like...
That is quite a look.
basically what you look like if you were in that outfit.
Oh my God, that's please at home do not Google that and imagine me like that. The weird thing, when I first Googled it, the first result is the Wikipedia page, and it says Zardoz is a 1974 Irish-American science fantasy film, as if that's a genre.
Wow.
The Irish-American science fantasy film.
Amazing. I've never heard of that before, but that's incredible.
Also, what's the difference between science fantasy and science fiction?
I think it's more fantastical than fictional.
Just
so
like not that would
like...
never happen, but that probably that never should happen. In the case of
fantastical.
That bikini
Maybe it's a bit more like fantasy is a bit more like Game of Thrones, so like a bit more like alternate kind of histories and dragons and
right, so a bit more magical.
Magical.
I mean, there does seem to be a flying rock thing with a face.
Yeah. If you Google...
I'm not Googling anything else you tell me today, Bradley. I'm done with the Brad Googles.
Oh, come on. Zardoz cosplay, that throws up some interesting looks. Because it's got people doing Zardoz.
Oh, I kind of have to do that now. Damn it, Brad!
Kind of...
Oh, lordy, you can buy the outfit. This is a well-known thing. Yeah. Oh, lordy.
It's horrendous.
Lordy. There's a lady that's got like I don't know what you call it, like a naked suit where it like covers your body but looks like you're naked, and then she's got hair on the naked suit. It's a strong effort from her. Remarkable.
It's amazing, right? It's making me cry just looking at that image of that lady because it's fucking hilarious.
There's another great one a bit further down where Zardoz has found Where's Wally. That is quite a clash of fantasies.
Wow, mate. Okay, so I've totally derailed us as usual.
Yes. So basically, what's going to happen is we're going to earn thousands of dollars more every year, every month, and I'm going to be both happy about that and sad about that, because if we do genuinely gain like $1,000 a month of advertising revenue, if we backdate that, then
don't even think about it, Johnny.
Yeah,
can't change the past, mate. Can't change the past. We've only got to be happy that you've discovered this massive monumental error at this point, because it's great. Now just think of it as positive. It's positive. It's good stuff. But yeah, we probably could have bought jet skis at this point.
Yeah.
If we hadn't have if we'd have unselected the block. Yeah. I wonder what sort of advertising we might get. I just keep thinking of like like I grew up in the 90s and 2000s when on late night TV you used to have the really catchy jingles for like sex phone lines. Do you remember those? There was one.
It was sex phone lines.
Well, they were like, I think they were like dating phone lines, not sex phone lines. Right. Sorry. So I've always just got this one in my. I've got a few things that go around my head, which I think Russell Brand has said about before, where he's got like, I'd rather have a bowl of Cocoa Pops. That sort of goes around my head sometimes. That song, do you remember that? I'd rather have a bowl of Cocoa Pops. And then another one that's sort of like a nice little one that goes around. Not only when I think of like stupid stuff like this, is there was a number, I think it was for the Gay Exchange, and it went 0191 50 50 50 or 0891 50 50 50. But it had like this banging sort of tune on it, and it was just a really up tempo jingle.
It's an industry that's been lost a little bit, because now you go to the website, which isn't as catchy. You can't make jingles, but like I know, is it Hastings Direct 0800 00 1066? Yeah, and that's gone. One.
They've all gone, mate. Yeah. They've all gone. The jingle. Imagine if you were a jingle musician and your bread and butter is making jingles for people. Yeah, like they were amazing jingles on like the Nokia one. Oh, like
a ringtone composer. Yeah, that must be. Whoever invented that one.
That went... that isn't called a jingle. That's called something else, because it's shorter than a jingle, and it's also just purely music-based. That's got its own name. But they're like these mad earworms that just stick with you forever. And for me, it's Cocoa Pops, Gay Exchange, and Nokia... And yeah, there's a few of them.
I've
What's
got like
the T-Mobile one?
local radio station ones. Like there was an American diner called RB's, and went RB's Diner in Delhi, and it was like
that's good.
like a gospel choir singing it. And I used to go to like off the back of that. I loved ribs as a kid, and we used to go get bottomless Coca-Cola, a rack of ribs, and me and my brother would sit there singing the singing the jingle to the fury of my parents.
Amazing. Was that in Oxfordshire then?
That was in Oxfordshire, yeah.
Wow. I know you're not really a South Park kind of guy potentially, but there's an episode called Casa Bonita where Cartman really wants to go to this Mexican restaurant because they've got a cave diving pool. So you like climb up, cliff diving, sorry. You climb up on a cliff and you can dive off of it.
In a restaurant?
So he in a restaurant. And I Googled it. It's a real thing. Casa Bonita is a real Mexican restaurant where you can do cliff diving.
What?
You can't do it. Sorry. They cliff dive. You can't cliff dive. But I think there's a jingle in it. Anyway, as Cartman does, he engineers a way that he can go there. And then he runs like loose and creates mayhem.
Yeah, there was no activity like that at RB's Diner in Delhi. I think it was basically just like a pit stop for bikers, but it had a really good jingle, so we ended up there quite a bit. Do you remember when we were filming in Florida? There was a restaurant. I don't think we ate in there in the end, but it was one that had a waterfall going through it, like a fake waterfall with like plastic rocks. It was on the boardwalk.
Florida.
Yeah, when we were in St. Pete.
Yeah, okay, I do remember that. Yeah, that's kind of like that was like a main tourist drag bit, wasn't it?
Yeah. Theme restaurants,
cool,
they've gone. Theme restaurants, jingles, ringtones. Mate. The world moves too fast.
But you know, the 90s are back in fashion, so we've got to basically open up a theme restaurant with a fucking brilliant jingle, and we're going to have
a really catchy number.
Sort of we're going to have like a dating component to it as well, where everybody's welcome to date everyone, and maybe we'll have like a swimming pool. Yeah, but we're going to do it, mate. We're going to have it's going to be a craft beer bar that is a themed bar where it has a catchy jingle, and we're bringing all these components together, Johnny. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be how we make our millions, mate. This time next year, we're going to be
this time next year, we're going to be millionaires anyway, because we've now enabled alcohol advertising on our alcohol-based channel.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to beer. Thanks for sticking with us throughout that absolute nonsense. We should probably talk about what's been going on this week. So, yes, like you alluded to, I've been editing our documentary, which comes out with a screening on the 21st, which you can attend. It will be in South London, a mystery location we will reveal fairly soon. We're working on the press release and all of those gubbins. But keep the 21st free if you can get to London, and keep the 28th free because we'll do a live show version when the video goes live. And we had a shoot day this week, didn't we, Bradley? We filmed 4 episodes in one day.
Mate, I'd like to say it was grueling, but it wasn't. It was really fun.
It was quite good fun.
I did fall asleep on the train home because I was exhausted.
Oh my God. Did you get off at the right stop? Or did you end up in Brighton?
I woke up... Well, it was the Brighton train, actually. I woke up a couple of stops before I was getting off. But I was very confused, and I was listening to a podcast... and I woke up and I was like, I've missed the whole podcast, so I had to rewind it.
I've been doing that. I keep trying to watch The Wire in the evening at the moment, but being a new parent, I just fall asleep 15 minutes in, and then with The Wire, half the people are dead, so many spoilers coming my way.
I'm also rewatching The Wire right now, which is interesting. Yeah, my girlfriend hasn't ever watched The Wire, so we're rewatching it.
Oh, there you go.
But I've unlocked Paramount Plus, which is like a sub channel.
Yeah.
Free for 1 month. I got a free for 1 month thing.
What are you watching?
And mate, I'm watching Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. It is well good. It is seriously fun. So it's got like a sort of slightly throwback vibe. They kind of look kind of cool and a little bit 60s, but it's set before the very first original Star Trek. So it's got Captain Pike in it before James T. Kirk. But interestingly, it's got Sulu. No, not Sulu, sorry. It's got O'Hara and it's got Spock, because obviously Spock can be quite old. because he's a man from what's it with the ears? I can't remember what they're called. Klingon?
Is
no, not
he
Klingons.
Vulcan?
What are they called? Vulcan. He's a Vulcan. He's half Vulcan, half human.
Right.
And he's got an incredibly deep voice in this, Johnny. He has got the deepest voice I've heard on television in a while. Because he's quite a young Spock.
Brad,
but
stop.
He's got like.
Stop.
Do you remember?
Stop.
Do you remember the Chocolate Rain song?
How many? We're a beer podcast, Bradley, and we cannot stay on topic. We were on a shoot day. What did we film?
Yeah, we filmed on a shoot day.
We filmed about smoked beer. So we did the history and the intrigue of the smoked beer. We did the history of Hefeweizen, which
that was good.
I blew your mind, didn't I?
Yeah. One of these beers is is world class. I drink it very, very often. It's so good, and I hadn't drank that particular beer before. I've drunk beers from them, but for some reason I hadn't drunk that particular beer. It was banging.
Yeah.
So good.
So it was a double whammy of it was a what even is, and also this is the best one of Hefeweizen. We're not going to reveal which one it was because we're going to leave that for the video. And then what else did we film? We filmed about temperature. What temperature you should serve your beer at? Which actually, I think it came from our Patreon forum. That was a request from somebody. So we've tackled that and we've gone deep. There's a diagram. And everything. There's
a diagram. There's like methods. There's the J Garrett method of just like adding certain amounts of things and
there's a formula, a diagram. There's philosophy in there as well. It's great. And the fourth episode was we revisited the beers that could be considered modern classics, or the beers that shaped our view of what craft beer should be, to see if they were still good.
British beers,
that is, yeah. And spoiler alert, one of them was not.
One of them was nasty, and it was quite shocking. I thought two of them were quite shocking. At least two of them were quite shocking. I thought,
and some of them were still absolutely banging, including the oldest. The oldest one was still brilliant.
Still amazing.
Yeah, so we've got those. Those will be rolling out. That's taking our calendar up to the documentary. Those episodes, so they'll be coming up over the next sort of 4 weeks or so. So let's talk about this week's video. So this week's video was a sponsored video with the Brewers Association of America. So they look after the interests of the 9,000 breweries in the US, which is an insane number. And they asked us if we would like to come down to a beer and food tasting lunch with 4 delicious courses cooked by the incredibly talented students of Kingsway College. And they paired that with some delicious beers that the Brewers Association have brought over. And we filmed it all, talked about it, and interviewed Adam Doullier, who is I think he's called the head chef of the Brewers Association, which is a bit weird. But basically, he deals with championing beer and food, which I think is a big aim and a big sort of target market, because obviously restaurants don't really buy a lot of great beer. So it feels like there's an open goal there. But as we discussed in the video, it's a tricky thing to get right.
Yeah, big time. I thought Adam was just such an amazing guy to talk to. Just the way he infused about a beer from having such a high level of knowledge with food and understanding the sort of subtleties of beer rather than just chucking gigantic things and maybe over egging the proverbial pudding. He had a real kind of swagger with how he sort of matched beers and food. I thought was great.
It reminded me of, he's somebody that's been doing this for a very long time, right? So he's moved past all the cliches, all the obvious things. He's got tired of, doing IPA with burgers or whatever it is, and he's gone deep and he's really thought about it. And that's what was really interesting to me, and that there were lots of ideas that I'd never have really considered. I'd never have put that ESB with the duck, but it really worked. I'd have never have put an IPA with a fish dish, And so there were lots of sort of interesting things that I learned through that tasting. And I consider myself very good at beer and food matching. My background is food, and I moved into beer, so I should have been very good at it, really. But actually, I learned a huge amount, and really enjoyed the conversation around why beer has lost its sort of place at the table, despite historically being the drink that you used to have with it. And, I'm still not sure how beer can get back there. I think that the reputation of beer has been not irrevocably damaged, but significantly damaged and detached from certainly fine dining. So at home, we're probably all having beer with our meals, but when you go out, it's still almost unheard of, I'd say, in fine dining, and that's a real shame, as he proved.
Yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it, and the whole thing about bubbles, the effervescence, sort of that carbonation triggering sort of memory part of your brain.
Yeah, I after he told me that blew me away, and I was like, right, I need to find these studies. I cannot find those studies, but I believe him, so I just need to ask him to send me the scientific studies that show that. Mostly, if you Google like effect of fizzy drinks or carbonation on the brain, you mostly get like people saying soda is bad for you, sugar is bad for you, it rots your brain. It's really hard to get through what most people are Googling to find the actual interesting scientific studies.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm laughing at that, because it's probably true. But, do we think his research was like Willy Wonka or something? He's read some Roald Dahl. Didn't the BFG, didn't he make a sort of bubbly drink or something? I can't even remember.
He drank a delicious drink.
Was it bubbly? Did it make him fart or something?
I
totally imagined that?
I think certainly in the animated version, he'd fart and then they'd float. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
Fizz Pop Whiz Bang, I think, was what they said.
Yeah, that's it.
Did it. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So maybe Adam's research was just reading the works of Roald Dahl.
And then just feeling nostalgic for the BFG. Yeah, it could be. I'm presuming there is scientific basis to what he's saying, and I will find it. Or just ask Adam. So did you find any delicious comments?
Can you just say what you just said in a Liam Neeson thing, which is, I will find you, I will track you down.
I will track down these academic studies. Or I will ask Adam.
Find you. Yeah. I found some interesting comments. There was one from a sort of smiley face. Their name is Smiley Face.
Oh,
and they it's like a sort of dots and they've done some emoticon sort of stuff, and they just said Brad's shirt is aggressively unbuttoned in the video.
Really
so I just like to. It is quite low.
It's three buttons. It's 3 buttons, Bradley. What kind of animal are you? This isn't the 60s.
Sexy animal. I'm bringing back the Zardos vibe. Next week,
please don't
come into the channel.
Oh god,
no, I won't be wearing it.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that during the smoked beer video, Brad is in a mankini.
It was so hot that day, Johnny, and because we're idiots, we didn't have any way of monitoring our sound when we were recording the video. So I had to go to Argos while we were setting up and buy a pair of cheap headphones so we could monitor the audio. So I was sweating. I was just sweating buckets when I got back, and my hair was totally wet, and I just felt like a sweaty mess. So I had to unbutton a little bit, maybe a little bit risque, unbuttoning this time, because I was just so overheating for that interview, and I didn't want to look like a sweaty mess.
But you didn't. You looked aggressively unbuttoned, but I think you styled it out.
Well, that's it. So the coping mechanism of unbuttoning aggressively worked.
If I hadn't liked what I saw, I'd have mentioned it during the shoot. I'd have been like, Brad, come on, let's go to 2 buttons at least. But I liked it.
So anyway, apologies / you're welcome.
Depending on your point of view. Sorry / you're welcome.
Yeah. Have you got any good comments, Johnny?
Yeah. So we had Rob Collingridge. Came out with a great question, which was really enjoyed this one. You sort of touched on it with the section about imperial stouts, but where do you see this sort of considered almost subtle approach to beer playing in the same space as an industry that almost rewards excess in its flavours, adjuncts, lactose, high ABV, etc.? Which is a great question, because pretty much all of the beers that we had were, I would say, not subtle but balanced. We had big IPAs, we had really funky cherry beer, a pineapple wheat. These weren't subtle beers, but they were all balanced. Whereas beer increasingly is getting less and less balanced as we try to sort of outgun the breweries down the road with how much fruit, hops per litre, or juicy aroma, or whatever it is. And I sort of responded to that comment. I don't know if you agree, Bradley, by saying like beers like that, they don't really belong on the table, or if they do, they're a course in themselves. You know, you could have a pastry sour or a pastry stout almost as pudding, or make a beer float, really nice which idea. I love. Just throw some ice cream in the Imperial Stout. You know, that's how it can fit in.
Oh yeah, at Little Faith they do a affogato thing where they float some ice cream in one of their big stouts.
There you go.
Which is real nice. That's real nice.
Yeah, super tasty Imperial Stout floats. We did a video on it right at the start of Craft Beer Channel, like a year in, which is mostly notable because I couldn't say stout float. I kept saying like stoat flout or float stoat, or it was just I don't know. I'd clearly been drinking.
That'll be the flout stouts getting to you then. Yeah, they're real tasty, and I think that is potentially a way to do it, isn't it? It's kind of making it a course in itself.
Yeah.
If it's something quite aggressively unbuttoned, like a big stout.
If we make another pastry beer, we should call it aggressively unbuttoned.
Aggressively unbuttoned, or letting all of the flavours out. Yeah, aggressively unbuttoned beers. I think. I almost I could see a sort of sorbet or something made out of a really light lemony sort of a lighter offering. I think that'd be real nice as well. I've lost my train of thought. What were you asking me, Johnny? What was the question?
My question was, do you agree that those kinds of beers that are supposed to be an experience in themselves are probably better off either away from food or not next to it but in between it?
I think we've all been doing it wrong if anyone's done this sort of thing at events before, which like events I've been to, they have massive pastry stouts and things like that at the ends of a meal where, and you know, also like the amounts you're drinking it in, if it's like, you know, you might be served a pint when you should be drinking a third of some of these things, or even less, let's be honest, if it's something big, because you don't want the sort of bloating effect that you could get from drinking a lot of beer. So it's kind of like, it's a balance between all the amazing flavour spectrum that you can get from beer, and then not overdoing it and getting bloated by just slamming pints while you're eating lovely food. I
mean, I don't ever really... I mean, there are definitely situations where you can drink a pint and you'll enjoy it, but it's not a 4-course dinner, because if you have 4 pints...
No.
You're not really going to enjoy the...
I mean,
food.
like, there are places where I'd only consider drinking a pint with my food, and that is in the Czech Republic, you know, when I'm drinking in Germany and stuff like that as well. Like, those are the nations where you're drinking lagers and you're eating sort of beige food, and it all just makes sense and it's beautiful. But if you're eating, you know, kind of more, you know, fine dining stuff, then you gotta have some
smoked
balance.
Fish crab cannelloni with spicy, was it mango? Can't remember. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I want to talk about, so you talked about sort of the bloating, and Adam talks about how he doesn't like finishing on really big beers, so you walk away feeling sort of heavy. To some extent, I personally, and this is all personal taste, slightly disagree in that I do think that Imperial Stouts could be great with certain puddings, like we've discussed, like doing an affogato kind of thing. But something that I didn't get into the video, which I wish I had, is like, because I think lots of people just want to know like the simple rules of how to do beer and food matching, and we definitely discussed some of those. But the way that I always approach beer and food matching is, would I add the flavors that are in this beer to the dish? And if I would, then it's probably going to be a good match. So, like, you know, the example we talked about where he put an Imperial Stout with a brownie, and he says that that's not a great thing to do. I agree, but for a different reason, which is that there's already, you know, chocolate, coffee, caramel, those kind of flavors in there. So you could amp it up, but a better thing to do would be to find something else that would work in there, which is why like a cherry beer would be fantastic, because chocolate and cherry, or raspberry, or, you know, something like that. And it's also why you probably wouldn't do it with, say, a New England IPA, because potentially papaya, passion fruit, and chocolate aren't necessarily a particularly good match. So if you're looking for a really simple way to try out matches, to have that weigh in to work out what's going to work, I always say that look at the flavors in the beer, and if they're things that could go into that dish, that could be an extra ingredient, then it's probably going to work.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think, for that reason also, imperial stouts at puddings. An imperial stout, if you've got a fruit-based dessert, an imperial stout might work. But if you've got something that's already imperial stout flavoured, because there are literally brownie imperial stouts, then you're not going to be adding much. You're just going to be amping up what's already there and making it very, very heavy.
Do you think we could do a video, Johnny, where you're sat at a table, and this is like sort of Russian roulette style, so maybe you're blindfolded or something, and you've got a load of beers behind you, and then I just put a different food item on the table at you, just slam it on the table, lump of cheddar, bang, and then you've got to grab something from behind you and match it on the table on the spot, and I'm
blindfolded.
Well, you're not blindfolded. Forget
okay.
The blindfold bit. That's stupid. But I'm just sort of like, I'm just thinking of the Deer Hunter, the film, where they're sort of playing Russian roulette. But it's kind of like you're being surprised by what things I'm chucking up on table. Packet of Frazzles, cheddar cheese. Yeah,
there's other foods. Other foods are available.
Other foods. Not for me. That's all I eat. But yeah. And then you're like, on the spot, having to kind of go this one, and you're kind of grabbing from a load of beers.
Yeah, I mean that'd be quite a cool video. I think.
Yeah,
I think you'd certainly throw some unusual foods at me.
Sure.
Before we move on, I just wanted to reference. So we got a tweet from Sam Jones who said really enjoyed the video and is going to be watching it again. But he said, I don't know if you can answer this on the Friday 5 p.m, but where would you put an Imperial Stout or Baltic Porter on a food menu? Which is a very good question, because we said not in dessert, and Adam potentially doesn't want to put that kind of beer with food anywhere, really. But Imperial Stouts, I would probably put towards the end, because they're extremely sweet. They're going to crash your palate. It probably does need to go at the end. You just need to choose something lighter for it to go with, and you need to pick something that I think is fruity to lighten it. Baltic Porter is an interesting question because it's a lager, because it's lighter, but it's still got all of those flavours. I think it could work really well with anything that's been grilled, anything that's got a slightly darkened crust to it. So not like caramelised like the duck that we had, but something like, the charred pineapple. A Baltic Porter might have worked with that pudding potentially if it had a bit of sweetness to it. But something where you look for something to sort of hang it on, a peg to hang your Baltic Porter on, and that could be something that's char grilled, got a little bit blackened. If the word blackened's on the menu, a Baltic Porter might really, really work. Or indeed, if you've got something that like a rotisserie chicken with a Baltic Porter might work really nicely, because you'll be adding that kind of charred Maillard kind of reaction to it.
You'd be aggressively unbuttoning that charred Maillard reaction, wouldn't you, Johnny?
I guess you would. I guess you would.
Just going to bring that. I'm just going to say aggressively unbuttoning.
Constant. It's a very pleasing thing to say, to be fair, and a pleasing thing to look at. Anyway, that is the end of this week's Friday 5 p.m. I hope we definitely have cause of diversion, but I hope we've rounded off your week in the way that you wanted it to. I'm not sure that we've rounded off my week in the way I want to, because now all I can think about is Brad's hairy chest. But we will see you on Wednesday for a studio episode. Not quite sure which one we're going to put out first. I'm going to look and see which one has the least nonsense to edit out. And we'll be revealing more about the documentary next week as well. Hopefully we'll be able to reveal everything that's happening, the times, the places, the breweries, the beers, the locations, and all of that next week. So watch out for that. Until then, love and beer. The Bubble and Friday 5 p.m. podcasts are brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's craft beer channel. You can watch over 400 mini documentaries at youtube.com/the craft beer channel. And if you love what we do, support us via Patreon and get access to merchandise and our amazing Discord forum, a positive and welcoming space for everyone who loves beer, food, and homebrewing. Love and beer.